At the beginning of the story, we see a notorious thief named Morris. He is arrested by the police for bank robbery and is being taken to Alcatraz, the world's most secure prison, to be imprisoned for life. Alcatraz is a prison built on a small island in the middle of the ocean. Even if a prisoner breaks out, he cannot escape because the water blocks his path. This is why this prison was considered the world's most secure prison. Only the world's top criminals were held here. But soon, this prison's reputation was about to be tarnished. Now, a notorious thief named Frank Morris, who had escaped prison many times before, had entered this prison. This time, Morris was a little nervous because the prison was extremely secure. However, Morris did not want to spend his entire life here. He wanted to escape as soon as possible. As soon as he entered the prison, Morris started thinking about escaping. Morris is thoroughly checked from head to toe and locked in a cell. A guard comes and tells Morris, "Welcome to Alcatraz," and this is where the real story begins. Suddenly, a bell rings and all the cell gates open automatically. The officers call the prisoners out. Discipline in this prison is also very strict. Prisoners must follow rules regarding cleanliness and entering their cells on time. Everyone wears the same uniform and lines up for breakfast. A prisoner named Litmus stands in front of Morris. Morris asks, "I haven't got a fork. How am I supposed to eat noodles now?" Litmus tells him, "Hey, this isn't your house. Eat whatever you've got, quietly." Just then, a dangerous prisoner named Wolf begins to tease Morris. Wolf was a problem for everyone in the prison. He used to dictate terms to every single prisoner and has numerous rape charges against him. This prison houses some of the most dangerous prisoners. Here, Litmus asks Morris for some food, and Morris offers him his plate. When Morris looks under the table, he realizes that Litmus isn't eating himself, but giving it to a rat. At night, a guard takes Morris to the warden. When Morris reaches the warden's office, the warden tells him, "I know you're very sharp-minded and intelligent, but what good is all that here? So many people like you have come and gone, and no one has ever escaped." The prisoners follow very strict rules. You can only visit once every 2 months, and that too, only if I'm in a good mood. The warden is a very strict man who punishes prisoners severely for even the slightest offense. The warden says, "Don't even think of escaping, otherwise you'll be torn to pieces." Morris replies, "No, sir, who would even think of escaping with you around?" But in reality, Morris had been planning his escape from the very first day. Seeing the opportunity, Morris stole the warden's nail cutter, a seemingly insignificant item. But Morris knew that in a prison like Alcatraz, even such a small tool could be used for significant purposes. Returning to his cell, Morris hid the nail cutter in a Bible. The next day, the wolf again harassed Morris in the bathroom. But this time, Morris wasn't about to let him go. After defeating the wolf, Morris gained a special status in the prison, and everyone began to fear him. After this, Morris was given work in the library. He meets a man named English. He's a senior inmate at the prison. English, who was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of 2 men, has spent half his life there, and he knows every nook and cranny of the prison. He's aware of everything that's happening. He even knows that Morris and Wolf had a fight that morning. He gives Morris some books, which Morris must deliver to each prisoner's cell. The next scene shows an open space where the prisoners are playing games. Then he meets an artist named Doc, who is painting his own painting. Doc is a simple and decent man who has been serving his sentence here for many years. He was very fond of painting and spent most of his time there. Doc said that anyone could go mad in a prison like Alcatraz, but because of his painting, his mind is still functioning normally. Morris asked Doc why the flower is depicted in the painting. "There's nothing like that in your shirt." Doc says, "It's my happiness that's only in the painting, not in my heart." Then when Morris looks to his right, he sees English above him. Morris walks towards English. When Morris approaches, his disciples stop him. English gestures, "He's our own man. Let him come." Morris sits down beside him and immediately pours out his heartfelt secret. Morris asks him, "You'll help me escape from here." English laughs at this. "Look, son, this isn't just a prison. It's our grave. If we want to get out of here, we'll have to die first. Only then will our dead bodies reach the graveyard. Let's assume you climb these massive walls, overcome these dangerous forces, and by some magical power, escape the hundreds of guards and get out of prison. Even then, you won't be able to escape because the ocean will block your path. So don't waste time and quietly serve your sentence. At least you'll be alive." But Morris was determined. He wanted to escape from the prison at all costs. That night, an officer told Morris that he had been assigned carpentry work starting tomorrow. He would also be paid 50 cents an hour. Morris immediately agreed to the job, thinking he might find a tool there that could help him escape. The next day, Morris asked Litmus for a way to escape from the prison. Litmus replied, "Oh, it's very easy. Every cell has an air vent. You can access the roof through it. You might be able to escape from there." Smiling at Morris's words, he left. Then Doc warned Morris that Wolf was coming towards him. Wolf came to attack Morris with a knife. Morris wrapped his coat around his arm and started fighting with him. When a guard came to stop him, Wolf stabbed him as well. Things escalated and the watchtower guards started shooting. Only then did Morris and Wolf stop fighting. Morris had no idea that there was a guard on the watchtower. He begins to notice every detail of the prison one by one. The guards take Morris and Wolf to D Block, where prisoners are kept in darkness and tortured throughout the night. This was a cell no prisoner wanted to go to. Before leaving, Wolf threatens Morris, saying, "Son, you will die at my hands." At night, Morris endures various tortures, which severely debilitate him. After 2 weeks in this dark cell, he's brought back to his cell, where Litmus sends Morris a note through his pet rat, saying, "Welcome back, Morris." One day, a new prisoner named Charlie arrives and is placed in the cell next to Morris's. Morris and Charlie quickly become friends. He then introduces him to his other friends. At the same time, the warden, without informing anyone, checks each prisoner's cell. When he visits Doc's cell, he finds numerous paintings by Doc. The warden is astonished to see that Doc's paintings are increasing day by day. Doc has even painted a painting of the warden. The warden smiles at the sight, but he doesn't know why. The next day, the warden orders the guards to throw out all the paintings in Doc's cell. The warden's decision completely shattered Doc, who lived solely on his paintings. He loved each and every one of his paintings as his only joy here, and that too had been taken away from him. Morris tried to convince him that it was okay. It was just a painting, he could create more. But Doc was unable to recover from the shock. The next day, when he saw him, Morris told the guard to please keep an eye on Doc. He looked very distressed, fearing he might harm himself. Then the guard told Morris to mind his own business. Doc was assigned to work as a carpenter alongside Morris. Then Doc secretly slipped something into Morris's pocket. Then he called a guard and chopped off 3 of his fingers with the carpentry axe, declaring, "I don't need fingers that I can't paint with." He began to scream. The guards then seized him and took him away. Morris sees that Doc has put the same flour he used to paint his picture in his coat. Perhaps he wants to tell Morris that these people have taken away my happiness. Morris picks up Doc's severed fingers and puts them in a box. Seeing the guard, he says, "Go give it to your warden. He will be very happy to see it." The next day, Morris is sitting in his cell. He sees a cockroach going into the air vent that gives him the idea that there must be a way out. Just then, English arrives and explains that Doc cut his fingers because his permission to paint was revoked. He cut his fingers out of frustration. This angers Morris. The next day, in the dining hall, the warden asked Morris why he's supporting Doc so much. He says, "It's nothing like that." With that, Morris goes back to his table and sits down. There, he meets 2 brothers, John and Clarence, but Morris talks to them as if he already knows them. John and Clarence were actually in Morris's gang in another prison. Escaping prison seemed easier for John as both brothers were as sharp-minded as Morris, and the 3 of them began planning their escape. That afternoon, Charlie's girlfriend came to visit him. Meanwhile, English's daughter came to visit him. As soon as English saw his daughter, he was terrified. tears well up in his eyes as his daughter had grown up in his absence, and English deeply regretted not seeing her childhood. Meanwhile, Charlie's wife tells him that his mother is very ill, and the doctors say she won't live more than a month. Hearing this, Charlie begins to consider escaping from Alcatraz, but a guard arrives and says the time for discussion is over. Charlie is deeply troubled. That night, he tells Morris that if he plans to escape, he should include him. The next day, Morris, Charlie, John, and Clarence meet. Morris explains that every cell's air vent opens onto the roof, and that this place is in the middle of a saltwater ocean, weakening the walls. I have a nail cutter and I've already started digging. If I dig a little at a time and make a small tunnel to the roof, then after examining this place, I'll figure out how to escape. John asks, if the guards find out you're not in your cell at night, won't they get suspicious? Clarence then reveals that he has a solution. He says he knows a barber here who cuts prisoners' hair. He can supply us with the hair, and using it, we can make a dummy head and place it on the bed. Even if we escape through the tunnel in the wall and end up on the roof, the guards won't suspect because there will be fake heads on our cell beds. But the question remains, we'll get out of prison, but how will we cross the ocean? Morris tells John, look, I need your help here. You work in the clothing department. There, you'll find raincoats made for those police officers. So, steal some raincoats and give them to me. We can make a tube boat and life jackets out of them and cross the ocean. Charlie then says, brother, give me some work too. I want to help you guys. Morris tells Charlie to keep watch while he digs for the ventilation grill so that no guard sees them, and he'll keep watch while they dig. Everyone agrees with Morris's plan, and they begin work that very night. However, the nail cutter was too small to use, requiring a lot of force to operate. He found it difficult to dig. He even managed to find a smaller tool, but he slowly began digging the hole. The next day, at the dinner table, he tells his friends, I need a bigger tool to dig. It's too difficult to dig through the wall with a nail cutter. Then, looking at the spoon in his hand, an idea comes to mind. He deliberately rubs the spoon on his shoe, making it dirty. Then, Morris calls the guard and says, this spoon is dirty. Give me another one. The others also request the guard to replace their spoons. The guard sees nothing wrong and immediately allows them to do so, after which he heads straight for the table. Another security guard is sitting on the seat, but as he begins to replace the spoons on the table, John distracts the guard. Taking advantage of this, Morris takes 2 spoons instead of 1, hiding one in his pocket. He then goes straight to his cell. That night, when English comes to give him his book, Morris asks if he can find any welding equipment there. English realizes that Morris is still obsessed with escaping from prison. He says, I've told you before that your attempt will be futile because you'll be caught and possibly even lose your life. And all these years, I've never even considered escaping because I know it's impossible. But if you're stubborn, what can I do? Try. But Morris's warning doesn't matter. The next day, he asks Litmus for a matchbox, saying, if you help me, I'll give your rat its share of food every day. Litmus is delighted. The deal is agreed because Litmus loved the rat. That night, Litmus passes Morris's matches. Morris removes a nail cutter handle, intending to fashion it into a small shovel. He then breaks a spoon and attaches it to the nail cutter handle. He strikes a match, welding the two together to form a sharp tool. Then, he begins digging around the vent. Charlie stands guard. If a guard approaches, he will immediately whistle to signal Morris. But while guarding, Charlie dozes off, and a guard appears. Luckily, English intervenes and distracts the guard. Charlie, listening to English's conversation, also wakes up. But in his tension, he can't even whistle and drops something. Morris, taking the hint, covers the vent and lies down on the bed. The guard asks if he smells something burning. Morris says, Sir, who dares smoke around you? I can't even breathe. The guard is relieved, thinking, at least someone respects me. As soon as he leaves, Morris removes the concrete around the vent. But he notices that screws have been driven into the ventilation grill, which would require a sharp tool to cut. During this time, whenever Morris gets a chance to go outside, he discreetly drops the cement from the grill. The next day, while working as a carpenter, he picks up a piece of metal that's as sharp as a knife. But Charlie asks him, how will you get it out without being noticed? Morris confidently says, I'll take care of it. When Morris leaves, the metal detector at the door starts ringing. In fact, Morris had brought the metal in his hand. The guard asks, "Why are you carrying it?" Morris replied, "Sir, I thought I'd use it to hang clothes." The guard says, "Don't be too smart and give it to me." With that, the guard takes the metal from him and after a thorough check, lets Morris go. But our hero is a hero. He actually stole 2 metals, one he carried in his hand and the other hidden in his shoes. Using the sharp metal, he cuts the grill. Now it's time to create a fake head to fool the guards. The 4 of them take on their own responsibilities. Charlie asks the guard for some paint. He tells him he loves to make art. The guard doesn't refuse and brings him the paint. Morris grinds the concrete extracted from the hole into a powder. John collects hair from the barber shop, and Clarence collects old books from the library. Once all the materials are gathered, Morris begins to create a dummy head using water and old magazines. He applies paint and fake hair to it, creating a completely realistic-looking fake head. Additionally, Morris creates a cardboard to further strengthen his plan, so no one will suspect someone has dug a tunnel through the opposite wall. One night, Morris decided to go upstairs alone. He placed his own fake skull on his bed and covered it with a blanket up to his neck. Then he took the fake cardboard and emerged from the tunnel. There, Morris slowly climbed up to the roof holding onto the pipes. Meanwhile, Charlie was standing guard outside. Upon reaching the roof, Morris noticed an iron grill, which he couldn't reach even by jumping. Meanwhile, a guard arrived and asked Charlie, "Why are you painting so late at night? And why did your friend Morris go to bed so early?" Charlie replied, "Yes, sir, Morris was tired from carpentry work today, so he went to bed early." Suddenly, the guard dropped his stick. Picking it up, he noticed that Morris's hair looked strange. Charlie began to tremble with fear, thinking he was done for the day. The guard went to Morris's cell.
He reaches inside and touches her hair. Morris asks, "What's wrong, sir? Is my hair so beautiful?" Luckily, Morris came down in time and laid down there. The next day, Morris tells his friends that there's a way to the roof, but it's blocked by a grill, and that grill is very high up. I need another friend's help. John then says, "I've completely dug my vent. I'll get there tonight too." Together they open the grill. That night, Morris and John reach the roof through their vents. John lifts Morris and Morris grabs the grill. John sees that the iron grill is very strong and completely welded. The only way to remove it is to cut it with a drill. The next day in music class, everyone is playing their instruments. Then Morris notices a small fan. Seeing this, Morris thinks he can work with it to make a drill machine. He tells Charlie to somehow hide the fan. Charlie easily hides the small fan in his instrument box. When Charlie emerges, the guards check his instrument box, but they don't find the fan, and Charlie is let go. As soon as Morris finds the fan, he begins working on it, and after several hours, he fashions a drill from it. That night, Morris and Charlie climb onto the roof and begin cutting the iron rods with the drill. The drill's noise was so loud that the guards rush up. But by then, Morris has cut a rod in the grill, and the drilling noise stops. After the drilling noise stops, the guards ignore him and go back. Now the 4 have opened all their escape routes. On Tuesday night, they were about to escape from Alcatraz, the world's most secure prison, from which no one has ever escaped. The next day, they have another meeting in a movie theater where everyone is watching a movie. Amid the sound of the movie, Morris asks John and Clarence if their vent is ready and what happened to the raincoats they were going to make tubes and life jackets from. They say everything is ready. Even their dummy heads are ready. It's just a matter of escaping. The next morning during breakfast, Morris places the flower dog gave them on the table. When the warden sees the pool, he comes to their table and crushes it. This enrages Lickmus, who was Dog's favorite flower and who was dead. Lickmus angrily attacks him, saying, "You killed Dog, and you're not leaving even a small memento he gave you." But as he attacks the warden, he suddenly suffers a heart attack and collapses. Morris becomes furious at the warden, and the 4 decide to escape that very night. Morris is waiting for midnight so that the guards' vigilance will weaken and they can easily escape. Just then, in Morris's cell, English gives him some books. Morris says, "I want to shake hands with you one last time." English understands that Morris has made a solid plan to escape. He quietly leaves. But what happens next is something Morris hadn't imagined. The warden suddenly comes to check his cell as if someone had tipped him off about his plan. Morris becomes extremely nervous as all his hard work after so many months is about to go to waste. The warden orders every corner of Morris's cell checked. The guards check every single thing in Morris's cell. But Morris wasn't just any ordinary prisoner making a small plan. Rather, he had a very clear and perfect plan, one that not only the warden, but even the warden's grandfather could not have figured out. Even when the guards removed the suitcase from the specific spot where Morris had created the tunnel to escape, Morris was not caught because he had already made a fake cardboard box and fitted it precisely to the wall. Finding nothing, the warden and guards leave. But the guards revealed that Morris and Charlie have been talking all night. I suspect something fishy. The warden says, "Okay, tomorrow you change Morris's cell so they can't be together or talk." The next day, at breakfast, Wolf threatens Morris again, telling him that tonight will be his last night. Morris tells his companions, "That idiot is right, tonight will be my last night here." But in the afternoon, Wolf goes to stab Morris with a knife. Just then, English intervenes and catches Wolf. In fact, English also wants to help Morris. Whether he succeeds or not, English will help Morris in his endeavor. That night, Morris, John, Clarence, and Charlie decide to escape through their respective vents and meet on the roof. Charlie agrees to escape with his companions, but as soon as he reaches his cell, he begins to panic. Sitting alone in his cell, he decides not to join the plan, and his three remaining companions escape through their own vents and reach the roof. The three wait for Charlie for a long time, but after a considerable time, when they realize Charlie won't return, they decide to leave him and escape. They proceed with their plan, but Charlie's dream of freedom is fading before his eyes. Slowly, they began to run, hiding from the searchlight. In this way, they reached the end of the building. Then Charlie, sitting in his cell, became inspired and decided to escape as well. He escaped through his own vent and reached the roof, but it was too late as he alone couldn't reach the door up there. Fear had cost him his chance of freedom. The three of them, on the other hand, dangled from a pipe on the roof and reached the prison's final wall, evading the eyes of the security guard in the tower. Then, one by one, they climbed the fence and escaped. They ran quickly to the seashore. Then they removed their raincoats and began blowing air into them through their mouths. It took a long time, but they had no other option. So, with all their might, they finally inflated the tube boat made from the raincoats and launched it into the water. Thus, they escaped, tarnishing the reputation of Alcatraz. The next morning, a guard was checking each cell. Initially, everything appeared normal to the guard, but when they reached Charlie, he stands like a ghost in his cell, silently taunting himself. If only he'd mustered a little courage last night, he might have escaped with the others. The guard asks, "Why is your friend sleeping so late?" He goes to Morris's cell and calls him out. But when Morris doesn't respond, the guard becomes enraged. He opens the cell and tries to wake him up by the hair, but when he pulls him up forcefully, his head falls down. The guard is devastated to see Morris no longer in his cell, but enjoying the outside world. He had left his dummy head on the bed. Sirens begin blaring throughout Alcatraz. Word spread throughout the prison that some prisoners have escaped. The warden begins searching every nook and corner for the three. When they can't be found, he launches a search operation at sea. The warden can't believe the three men escaped. He thinks they must have died in the water, but deep inside, the warden knows they were incredibly strong. Having crossed the ocean, they must now be breathing the air of freedom. The officers at headquarters pepper the warden with questions. "Were you sleeping when those three men escaped?" The warden is deeply tense, but then he finds Dog's favorite flower. This suggests Morris wanted revenge on the warden for Dog. The head of the search team then arrives and informs him that, "Sir, every inch has been searched, but their bodies haven't been found." To save his job and his image, the warden tells Walton to write the report as he says. Write that the three men tried to escape, but drowned. But no one believes Walton. Morris's escape from Alcatraz prison has earned him worldwide fame as a genius. Alcatraz prison was closed a year after this incident because there was no longer a guarantee of escape. If you enjoy what we do here, please like the video and subscribe to this channel to keep us motivated. See you in the next video.